Hi everybody, the class is starting now. Uh, the student go to the teacher's website. The application of Python artificial intelligence on business forecasting, and for the you open the chapter 5 Python artificial intelligence, and today we will do the practice of the example 5-11. Using the Keras module for deep learning, a simple 4-step to build a neural network with multiple neurons for a nonlinear regression model to predict y by giving x. So the goal here we will introduce the Keras neural network module, a simple 4-step. The objective is using the objective is using the deep learning Keras modules apply the simple 4 steps to build a neural network with multiple neurons for nonlinear regression model. And first learn the parabolas or hyperbolas as y data, then input s and predict y. So today we will predict y when x is 10 and y is y. And first of all, that we will to connect to the Google server. And for the exercise 1, we will load the nonlinear SY dataset. And here is the parabola data. And we will read the SY data. For the exercise 2, for the single neural network model, simple 4-step. And first of all, we should to build a mathematical model. We use the Keras neural model, a single layer, and a neural network. But today we will to build that 3 layer, and the layer we will input for the first layer. Okay, the neuron of the here we input the 6 units of the neurons, and for the input dimension, because we only have one x, so input dimension is 1. And here is the model is a sequential models. Okay, so now I insert a code set and I import the TensorFlow. And I call this as TF, And then I will create a model. I use TensorFlow. He have Keras modules, and I build a sequential. And here, this sequential, I will build a like a human being neural network. Inside is like the brain, and I create the first layer. I create a layer. That layer is like a spider web, a dense web. Inside here, that I have a unit that is okay. Maybe I can to set a 64, and I have the input dimension that is 1 dimension. Here, this is the first layer, and the second I will build a second layer, the Keras layer. And here is also a dense. And that is the unit. And then finally, I will set that the upper layer. And for the upper layer is also a dense layer. And I input the Unicode units, that is 1. I can change this as the 32. So then I will build of this model. Oh, here is my artificial neural networks model. And then for the exercise 3, that is step 2, that I set the mathematical function of a neural network model. Inside this, I should set 3 parameters. I will choose the loss function. I will choose the optimize function. I will choose the performance evaluation function, the matrix. So later I will input the, okay, this is step 2 to set the 3 mathematical function for neural network. So I insert a code cell. So I set a compiler 3 function. The first is the loss. The loss is, okay, I select the loss function. I use the Keras, and that is losses. And because this is a regression problem, so most of the regression they use the mean square error, this algorithm. And finally, that I should to set the optimize function. Optimize function. For the optimize function, I use the Keras. Okay, the optimizer. Here that I choose okay. Most of the best optimizer function is optim. Okay, here that is the other one, that is the matrix. For this of the matrix, that is TensorFlow for Keras for what? For the matrix that I choose. Okay, because this is a regression problem, so the algorithm for the matrix is also the mean square error. But you must pay attention. There's a note here for the matrix because he can create many kinds of the. So this is a multiple parameter. The lowest and the optimize is only the single one parameter, but the matrix data is multiple parameter. So here we can set a lot of the algorithm. Although here that I only set one. Finally, I execute the script. And next is exercise 4 for step 3, train the model with historical data. Okay, here that I must to let this to learn. Okay, so I will to use the model fit the data. The data let is df. Okay, here must use the the multiples dimension, but you must know inside the for the deep learning for the x and y, both of them are the multiple dimensional data. So here that y is also the multiple dimension, and I also must to use the apex of that. I set the 1000, and because if I execute this, it will do many 1000 apex. It will take a lot of time. So I should to have a GPU. I will change the running time. Here I check in for the GPU. So save, and I run this. Okay, here he said the model is not defined because it takes a lot of time. So I should to execute the code again. Read the data first, and then build the model, and then build a model, and then okay, here is that is my model, and I also need to set the data, the three function for the model, and then I also let it to learn of the okay. And here it have a very fast speed because due to of we have the GPU, and then you must pay attention on the loss. The loss must have better to decrease, but here you know that the loss is also be stable. Okay, finally that after you execute the apex is finished to the 1000, then the calculation is done. Okay, this is done. We have finished the calculation. So finally we will do the exercise 5 for the step 2. Step 4, we will make a parabola data prediction for the 抛物线. I will ask you when x is 12, what is y? Okay. So now I want to do the prediction, right? But you must understand for one thing, that is I insert okay I insert a code. Okay, here do the prediction for the predict. And in the past, like in machine learning, we just input the x is 2-dimensional, right? But here we have some error because in deep learning, that here it must be correct format. Okay, that because that you have execute the code for. Okay, we will wait for a lot of seconds until the calculation is finished. So maybe that I should not all. I should to interrupt the execution, and then I okay now the execution executing. Now it's still on the executing now. So maybe I should to again interrupt execution. Okay, I have better to do this. I have better to perform the calculation manually.
Perform calculations manually.
Manually. Manually. To do the calculation manually, that I should to do the calculation manually. First of all, that I load the data, and the second that is to build the model, and then the next is to set the three functions for the model, and finally that I do this for the to learn the data. Okay, we will wait for the calculation until the number is the 1000th. And we can see the information here that he said that it is still on executing. Okay, because this is finished, so I know that the calculation is finished. And finally that I do this for, okay, if I do the predict, I input the multiple dimension of data of X, but it have created an error, a wrong message. This is because the deep learning must have a correct, precise format of X. The X must be the vertical columns. So here that I should to import the pandas.spd, and finally that I should to transfer the use the data format, data frame. I use the one I transfer for the one-dimensional list to the two-dimensional for this. So I use this to predict. Model 点 predict. I use of this PD 点 data frame to predict. So the answer is here is the 2.64. But then I should to get the value of this, right? So I use of, because here is two-dimensional, so I here use two-dimensional data. So the number is here. And then I must to draw the curve to show the data that I have predict. So then I should to execute the this code for the install the Chinese font for the Chinese character. And then I draw the picture, I draw the curve. First of all, that I import the module for the matplotlib library Python plot, and then I draw the data. This is for the 原始点, the raw data. For this raw data, I use the plot for the scatter. And for this scatter, I draw the original data is one-dimensional y. I draw the data for this, and then this is my predicted data. For this predicted data, I use the plot scatter, and here that is one-dimensional 12. But here that I use the model for predict. And here for the predict that I use the, I must transform to the vertical columns of the data frame. And here for the data frame that I use to transform to 12. And finally, I set the color is red. So the answer is not correct, right? So I have a lot of the doubt why that the answer is not correct. So I must to draw the regression. For the regression line, I first to draw the predict for the predict data for the dfx, and then here is my predict model for the predict. Here is my model predict. Predict that I use the pd dot data frame. Data frame for this that I use the one-dimensional data. I draw the here. I to draw the line plot. And for this that I give the color as the purple. And why let my deep learning for the ANN artificial neural network that cannot predict the curve is still the line? The reason is because here when you build a model, you must give the activation function. And because this is regression, the activation function here is for the value. But for the outlet of activation, you do not need to input the activation. So here that you should to activation give the value function. Activation is the value function. But here for the outlet, you don't need to give the activation. Finally, you build the model again, and you have better to read the data first, and to build the model next, and to set 3 parameters next, and then to learn the data next. We will wait for the executing until this is done. Okay, this is finished. So then I can do the predict. But this is not correct because the data format is not correct. I should transfer into this the multiple dimension data. Okay, this is the horizontal, this is the vertical data. So then I predict the data like this, and then I will draw to install the Chinese font for the Chinese character of drawing, and then I will draw the curve over here. Okay, here that is correct. So the activation function is very important when you to do the deep learning. If the activation function you do not set the activation here, although you have the multiple units of the deep learning neuron, but the answer is also linear prediction. After you set the activation function, your deep learning model will do the nonlinear prediction. So we have a conclusion. To learn nonlinear problem, you must include an activation function. Activation for hidden layer is rare. Activation for the final output layer. For a regression problem, you don't need to. Is no activation method needed. But for the binary classification problem, that we can set the second mode. For the multiple class classification problem, you set the softmax function. Okay, student, you have the 5 minutes to practice this exercise.